Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Poikinen. I am here in half burnout Boulder Creek, California. Why the hell? I don't know who I need to yell at for that. I'm not sure.
It's
Like,
not
really
me.
not. Eh, We do it live. I still have no idea what the fuck's going on. At any rate, this is going to set the tone for the entire interview, and I couldn't be happier about that because we are joined once again. Holy crap, dude! We're like up over double digits now with the number of times that Whitney's been on the show. I love these fucking conversations. They
Yeah.
give me life. Um,
They
I'm
break your
incredibly
brain.
yes. Dude,
Mhm.
look, we're here to kick ass and break brains and eventually, all stand naked in a field on mushrooms together. But uh until that happens, we're gonna focus on the brain breaking part. And my God, man, Whitney Webb, welcome back to the program. I'm so very happy to sit down with you again, even though this could be the beginning of the end of all things. How are you?
I'm doing all right at the beginning of the end of all things. At least when the end comes, I'll finally get that vacation from work that I'd been trying to take for like a month and a half.
Oh
So,
shit, man. When we last talked, I think it was like right after the election. I can't. I'll have to actually go back and look to see when the last time we had you on was. But we hadn't quite hit the everyone in the world is a Nazi, and everyone who went to the Capitol is a domestic terrorist portion of the shit show that we're currently in right now. Um,
yeah.
However, you and I and Glory and Jason Burmis sat around on election day, and we talked about all this, as I guess as one of the end game scenarios that could have played out, and here we are living it. And I just wanted to get some of your thoughts on what it's like to, I don't know, see this shit coming and like try and scream it at people and have them go, okay, but you're alt-right adjacent, so I'm not going to believe you.
Well,
The
I don't
official
really.
term is Nazi collaborator.
Well, I haven't been called that, right? But I mean, in terms of seeing this coming, what I've been trying to do the whole time and what I'm still trying to do with some other stuff like this coming cyber pandemic, is like preempt the narrative. The more we preempt the narrative, the better chance we have of getting this info out during and after that event takes place. And the main reason for that is what we're seeing now. When these events take place, you see a huge jump in social media censorship, and not just social media censorship, but like mass deplatforming, the taking down of entire websites, and the scrubbing of information from the internet. So, it's harder then to research those events, who could be behind it, what's going on. And so it's really important to listen to the people that we know are evil and bad. Let's start off with the U.S. national security state, right? The intelligence community, front companies that are basically, ex people from government or ex people from intelligence setting up their own front companies, basically, and advancing their own agendas that are often tied to the national security state and some of these transnational groups like the World Economic Forum. And see what they're saying is going to happen, because so far they have a pretty good track record of where they say, watch out for this, it's coming soon, of that same thing coming true. So you have Event 201 is an example a lot of people know preceding COVID-19. Less people know that last year the World Economic Forum, which did Event 201, had an exercise about a cyber pandemic, power grids going down everywhere, called Cyber Polygon. And then you have Klaus Schwab, the head of the or the founder of the World Economic Forum, saying last July that after COVID, there's going to be, cyber warfare that's going to take down power grids and all of this stuff. So, it's not really hard to see what's going on here. So the idea is you have to preempt the narrative. So yeah, I mean, when I was talking about this stuff before the election, I had people being like, "Oh, she's the new Alex Jones," and that I was making like predictions that held no water or whatever. But I'm just telling you what these people are saying, and I'm just reporting what they have said and how they seem to be setting up the very thing that they're warning you about, and that those same people pretty much every time benefit from the event they're trying to warn you about and prevent, right? So, I mean, that's basically my answer.
For soundbite's sake, can we get a clip of you saying they're turning the frogs gay, though? Just
no, no, because that will be used against me. That will be used against me. maybe
And it's like
maybe during the blackout.
It's like,
I'll say it.
Read Klaus Schwab's The Great Reset and the COVID-19, and he outlines all of it for us. So like, you don't even have to take my word for it. Just look up Klaus Schwab's word, and you can see he's an open fucking eugenicist with a transhumanist agenda trying to use COVID as an excuse for that. So, but...
Well, what's really interesting, though, since we're hearing about the Russian hackers again, is that this cyber polygon simulation of a huge cyber warfare crisis that's going to bring the world to its knees after COVID, right? It was the keynote speakers were Klaus Schwab, but also the Russian prime minister. Also, there was like Tony Blair and a bunch of high-ranking people from the West, right? So if everyone's like, oh no, the Russian hackers, why aren't they complaining about, you know, Klaus Schwab and those guys inviting Russia's prime minister to take part in this cyber preparedness exercise? Like, I don't know if they're so worried about Russian hackers all the time. But I mean, the new Russian hacking narrative we're seeing is literally a repeat of 2016. It even involves the same freaking people, like CrowdStrike is at the center once again. And people are like, oh, well, we'll believe them this time. You know, I mean, it's just, you know, I would say it's clown world, but I think we need a new world for that, which is, you know, something beyond clown world, maybe degenerate midget clown world, something like that.
I mean, I've been running with fucking cartoon for a couple of years now, and
I know,
and
but it's worse.
The thing is I watch cartoons and I watch a lot of anime, and there's like 97% of them that I would rather live in than the one we're living in right now. So it's like, you gotta specify that it's a shitty fucking cartoon.
So this is also why we're advocating that someone form a working group to toss another animal into the Large Hadron Collider and maybe like cause another hard reset that will hurtle us into a hopefully less stupid timeline. All right, because the last time it brought us to the stupidest of all possible timelines. I don't believe it's the worst by any means, nor is it even remotely anywhere near close the best. But my God, this is the stupidest. And I think maybe like we were trying to figure this out the other day. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, Whitney. Depending on the intelligence of the animal thrown into the collider, I don't know if that has anything to do with like whether we go into a smarter or better timeline. So we started trying to figure out who we could sacrifice, like who's a genuinely nice, kind, intelligent person.
Yeah, because Steve wants to sacrifice like an actual nice being. I just proposed using like invasive species to kind of like so we can test one at a time and we can test different like invasive species. Steve just wants to do a straight up like ancient sacrifice ritual.
Okay, so I don't have any expertise on...
We're not asking for expertise. We're asking for pure unbridled speculation. We are. All
right.
The void of
I'd
logic.
probably go with squirrels.
Okay.
Well, only because when I was in university, there was a problem where squirrels fell into the power grid and like took the whole thing down all the time. So I feel like they're kind of used to that. They kind of willingly introduce themselves into situations like that. So then it's not really a sacrifice, right? I feel silly.
Okay. Yeah, I think because Glory had some like moral compunctions about out and out sacrifice, and I had offered up a.
So I do also.
I had offered up a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Whom I believe is a truly nice and wonderful and genuine person, and like I haven't actually called him up and said, hey Conrad, like I would like to sacrifice you to the Large Hadron Collider, but that call's coming. It is, and I think we could get somewhere with it. I really do. Let's talk about CrowdStrike for a second, because their reemergence into the national conversation, the timing is I don't know, incredibly convenient. And then the big ask that the media is making is for everyone to have collective amnesia about CrowdStrike.
Hey, I mean, that's not hard because it was 4 years ago, and there's the COVID stuff, and, you know, lots has happened since then. So, you know, and most people are super distracted by the Capitol stuff right now. I mean, literally, that's pretty much all anyone's reporting. And that's also true for independent media, but that's because at least the people with integrity in independent media have to push back against these insane narratives because so much of independent media is promoting it right now. And it's like wild. Like the people that used to be the most like well-known anti-imperialists and stuff like this are like, it's all Nazis, you know.
Yes.
And it's the broad brush. It doesn't end well, but I don't want to take the discussion too far from CrowdStrike, but one thing I've really noticed about the Capitol riot narrative setting, I guess that's come afterwards, is this effort to really sell it to progressives, to have progressives be the ones on board with this new war on domestic terror, when historically that same ideology, you know, the progressive left are the targets of the very national security state, both domestically and abroad, that these laws are used to target. So it's being like, hey, this is really designed for you, but we want you to be, you know, we want you on board, I guess, because maybe they're Biden's base or wherever. I mean, you can come up with a couple different theories as to why this is going on, but that's why you have people from the squad, right, front and center, being like, you know, really leading the propaganda push on this. And they're like, what, the face of progressivism? They're the celebrity leaders these days of the progressive left in the United States. So it's pretty telling who they're trying to, you know, get to really buy into this narrative. And it is working. Holy crap. And it's sad.
AOC
Very
straight
sad.
up said we need to rein in media. She straight up got up, put on her little ugly ass little like half mask, half gold chain shit. Like,
did you see that shit?
And she went on like this whole tirade about how we need to rein in media to prevent disinformation from spreading, while her newly elected Congresswoman Cori Bush out here writing resolutions to expel half the fucking Congress a day before the actual Capitol event happens. So it's like, oh my god, I fucking hate them. I hate them. It's like, it's so dishonest. And
but Whitney's
AOC's always been dishonest. I had people email when I worked at Mint Press. I wrote an article about AOC in like 2018. I had like a bunch of people that read that email, my former boss, asking to have me fired because of what I wrote about AOC. And I was writing about her Green New Deal. People were like, yay, we love how this sounds, but no one read the text. And, you know, if you read the text, it's like AOC's like, cap and trade and bring in the Federal Reserve to fix the environmental crisis. And you're like, wait, what? And then you realize that AOC, you know, studied economics at a very neoliberal economics department, I think at Boston University and stuff like that. And you're like, now it all makes sense.
True story. That article and my coverage of it got me my first hate mail, and it's also it's also what got me like going, I really need to get Whitney on my fucking show, because I love that art. I still send that article to people.
The Green New Grift.
Who were like, oh, but Green New Deal is everything, and no, it's okay if end users are punished through a regressive carbon tax. No, because we're saving the planet. And like, yeah. So that article's come in handy over the last couple of years to be.
Well, yeah, because cap and trade, which it promotes, is supported by the biggest oil companies and all of the people that are supposed to be against the people that are supporting the Green New Deal. So, I mean, that tells you a lot. It also tells you a lot about the squad that Ilhan Omar's heroes, as described by her, or Madeleine Albright and Margaret Thatcher, progressives. Okay, so I mean, you know, who does the squad really represent, and who do they work for? I would just take a look at some of their statements and what they're doing now. I mean, AOC saying you're either with us or the mob, which is literally a rehash of W's. You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. Is like, it couldn't be more blatant. But now, instead of the neocons leading the push for war, it's the progressive left in the U.S. now.
And that's something that kills me, because there's a whole like segment of independent media that makes its living off of uncritically repeating and then
Squad
pushing
worship.
everything
That's what we should call it.
that the squad's. You what now?
The squad worship, the Church of the Squad.
Yeah, and we all know who these fucks are. You know, you don't even have to name them. But there's a whole cadre of indie media that just uncritically pushes forward all of these narratives. And the same people who just spent 2-3 years railing against a sort of abstract concept of imperialism and abstract concept of the right are going to be like, yeah, you know, censorship is good actually, and we should curb free speech and we should curb public assembly because we're in a murderous pandemic, and like this is going to be the narrative going forth. And this is what
it's like these people are like, oh yeah, we need to stop this rising tide of Nazism right here. And I don't know about you, but I actually fight Nazis. I'm not nice.
Yeah,
the rhetoric. I go and punch Nazis. Like, bitch, I want to punch a fucking Nazi too. You're not special.
Well, like the rhetoric is really militant and wild. I mean, you've had people, like that PBS lawyer video, the guy being like, we need to take children away from, if their parents are Trump supporters, take them away and send them somewhere to be like re-educated. So to avoid a new generation of white supremacists. Okay. I mean, not all Trump supporters are white supremacists, obviously. I mean, it's just you literally have willingly given yourself brain slugs if you are promoting that. I mean, it's just literally wild, or it shows that you're completely out of touch and in an ideological bubble where you literally don't interact with people that represent, like the working class right, I guess you could say, even, or just people that tend to vote differently than you do.
Jason Burmis and I were having problems getting people of color on camera at the Trump event because they didn't want to show their faces, because they were like, no, I'd really rather not. I'd rather not put my face out there because we'll be targeted by people in our own community who don't understand that we're here to observe. You know, that we just wanted to see what I'm speaking specifically about the 6th right now. But I mean, we talked to a number of people who were like, yeah, no, I can't put my face out there because as soon as I do, I'm going to be targeted. I'm going to be attacked. I'm going to have to like face, giant backlash in my literally like where I live and work if I put my face on camera. And on the flip side of that, we've got sitting members of Congress and their arm in the media going, we need to find who these people are. We need to expose these people. We need to root them out and have them dragged away from their fucking family.
Acting like they need regular people's help to find and identify who these people are, like they don't have the facial recognition ability to do that, when we all know they do. Or, having access to Palantir, which is a contractor to, DHS, all major U.S. intelligence agencies, the military. I mean, you name it. The way mainstream media describes Palantir is they know everything about you. They amass everything that is from the NSA, that is like the illegal spying, all of the databases of the government, intelligence community, and otherwise about you in one place. And they can't figure out from your like location data on your phone if you are around the Capitol. You need like, the lady watching MSNBC to be like, that looks like my son's friend from high school or something like that, and have us start ratting each other out. And that's what it's all about, in my opinion.
Yeah, database searches and Clearview AI have spiked in the last couple of days with law enforcement agencies. Clearview AI, which is also invested in Peter Thiel. So
Palantir, right, exactly. It's nutty. So it's very easy to see the kind of situation they're making, and they're literally turning progressives who are the historical victims of this type of stuff. I mean, as one example, Operation Condor was used to go over leftists throughout South America in a trans-border op. information sharing between CIA-backed military dictatorships all over South America, not just to go after communists, but socialists, democratic socialists, and anyone that was just accused of having sympathies to those groups, meaning like, oh, I am sympathetic to my sister who was one of those people you wrapped up and you took away and disappeared. That could be, it's a very slippery slope who gets wrapped up in that. And then 100,000 people were killed and how thousands more never found, right? And so and so this is the type of that was Operation Condor, literally designed by the CIA and then foisted upon these dictatorships that they backed and controlled, really. So you think that roadmap isn't going to be used for this U.S. war on domestic terror? I mean, the roadmap for Operation Condor and the CIA, their efforts there are the direct descendant of the Phoenix program in Vietnam, which was very much the same, and killed probably like 40 to 60,000 people, depending on the estimate you go with. And a lot of the CIA, oh, I'm repeating again. But anyway, a lot of the CIA officers that were involved in the Phoenix program later went on to be involved in the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, or the broader pivot before 9/11 to from a focus on defending the U.S. from foreign threats to homeland defense, which really began in 1997. And the guy that came up with that term within the power structure in D.C. Was Richard Armitage, who later went on to be part of the George W. Bush administration, but he was directly involved in the Phoenix program as part of the CIA, right? So it's not hard to see how this is set up, and the fact that they're having progressives now be the people championing this is wild, but it's really a continuation of what began 4 years ago, I would argue, where after the loss of Hillary Clinton in 2016, I mean, they turned liberals into neocons, essentially. And 100%. You had this fusion of neocons becoming resistance figures. You had people like John Brennan, the former CIA director under Obama, and these people being rolled out as pundits on mainstream media outlets, largely watched by left-leaning audiences in the U.S. And what sort of result did that end up having? I mean, when Trump would try and do his sort of mealy-mouthed attempts, I guess, at it winding down intervention in Syria and stuff like that, right? It would be the liberals being like, no, right? All of a sudden,
he's abandoning our allies. How could you?
You're endangering our troops by making them leave harm's way.
Yeah, but really
ceding influence to Russia.
But post-Iraq war, it's been all about, for the national security state, all about neutering the left. And by neutering the left, I mean ideologically neutering them and basically turning them into neocons. But they still, a lot of them come from this position that, we have the moral high ground and stuff like that. But, you really don't, because why are you palling around with Bill Kristol and Mitt Romney?
No shit, dude. You're holding up Rick Wilson's fucking columns.
Or the Lincoln Project guys, it's like...
Didn't he just get embroiled in a fucking sexual assault and harassment scandal, the Lincoln Project? I saw that this morning or yesterday.
I don't know.
There were blue check liberals tripping over themselves to excuse away fucking sexual misconduct again, because it happened to be like somebody that they considered to be on their team. So you can,
gropey rapist Biden's going to be in the White House, so got to normalize that shit, right?
Yeah, because they couldn't normalize it enough under Clinton. Like, I mean, what the fuck, dude? It's ridiculous. But I've been saying for years, and I've taken a lot of shit for it. The progressives are just neoliberals with training wheels, and the training wheels have come off in the last couple of weeks, and we're really seeing this push towards an authoritarian technopoly that these fucks are uncritically parroting and welcoming, and it makes me it's done making me angry. Like, now it makes me nervous. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to be nervous looking at what's going on here, especially, if you are an activist of any sort, because basically what a lot of this coming domestic terror legislation is about And it's already been around. I mean, there's several acts that they're reintroducing that, had been originally written in the past 2 years. The ACLU, in describing those, is like, well, it says it's about, targeting far-right white supremacists, but really it will be used to target minorities, environmental activists, and basically, social movements generally associated with the progressive left. Well, it's almost like they know history also.
And yet, nobody on the progressive left can make this fucking connection, even when you've got people who are literally drawing it out in front of them and saying all you have to do is look from one point to the other and see exactly where you fall on it. And no.
Just wait until the force to vote people try and go to DC and do something, and then they can get called Antifa domestic terrorists.
So the force to vote people went to DC to try to do something. They had their events on January 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And it wasn't like Jimmy Dore didn't have on the organizer for these things, a guy named Jackson Hinkle. Jimmy Dore didn't put him on his show, so he didn't the protest itself didn't become huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that we had, because this happened, we talked to Jackson because we had events that were going on as well for Julian Assange, and he didn't want those to overlap, which was incredibly fucking nice. So we were able to watch this. You had 50, 60, 70 Capitol Police, the same police that stood down a few days later, surrounding in a fucking horseshoe 40 force the vote protesters. Mm-hmm. They were told you cannot, you will arrest every single person here if you don't get off the steps of the Rayburn House office buildings right now. The exact same police, the exact same the exact same area of DC, except for the Capitol's right here and the office buildings are right here on the other side of the street. So they were going to arrest everyone, including me and our crew, for being there if we didn't move.
Yeah.
Now, you fast forward 48 hours later, where it's a fucking free-for-all, where the Capitol Police themselves are like, yeah, just go ahead, let's snap a couple of pics together. Hey, it's all fucking family fun here now.
That video that came out, there was the first video of them opening the security fence, but then the video of them opening legit doors into the Capitol and waving them in comes out, and you're like, huh. Why haven't any of these domestic terror arrests by the FBI rounded up DC Capitol Police yet? Why has there been no testimony given to Congress? I guess they're too interested with impeachment, right? Of the head of DC Police being like, I put your lives in danger because I'm incompetent. I guess that's what he'd say, but it's worth looking into that guy, because before he was DC Police Commissioner, he presumably was the guy that was responsible for saying, lacks police presence, or, absurdly incompetent, or what, complicit, really, police presence, it technically stands on his shoulders, right? Or sits on his shoulders. Anyway, if you look back at his work history, he used to work for a U.S. government contractor called Nobles, and had a big executive position there. And they're all tied up with MITRE Corporation and a lot of these really spook, intelligence community contractors. Their board of trustees is chaired by our good friend Michael Chertoff, the former head of DHS, and who's also on the board of the coming pre-crime program that's going to be a key part of this war on domestic terrorism, Carbine 911, funded by Peter Thiel of Palantir, and that intelligence linked pedophile known as Jeffrey Epstein. So
we forgot to wish a happy birthday to the 0 day for pre-crime. Wasn't that last week that division officially opened for business?
In terms of when it opened, I just remember when it was announced by Bill Barr, which was in October of 2019.
Yeah, and then it was slated to begin January 2021.
The exact date, I haven't seen that, but yeah, I mean, it was set up to start really soon, and how convenient that date correlates with the January 6th event, and who's benefiting here. And it's no coincidence that a lot of the legislation that they're reintroducing in response to the Capitol riots are called things like the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act, which is exactly like how it was, if you remember back to the time before COVID, when we were all being fear-mongered about mass shootings. It was, we have to prevent mass shootings before they happen, right? So now it's, we have to prevent domestic terror events before they happen, you know, and this is all been set up by Trump, Bill Barr, really, but under the Trump administration. And now it's being, you know, weaponized against Trump supporters, but it will be weaponized against everyone. And that's how these things generally work, unfortunately. But I mean, reality. And going back to what you were saying earlier about calling progressives neoliberals with training wheels, I think honestly, it's time that we retire the word neoliberal, just because, you know, a lot of people, especially with this whole divide and conquer thing going on right now, why do neoliberals generally support public-private partnerships? How do people on the progressive left often define fascism when the corporations and the government merge and come together? Okay, so the people on the left, right, are fighting fascism. I don't know. Neoliberals generally tend to be pretty freaking fascist, and now that they're becoming more authoritarian than ever, I think it's time we start calling neoliberals fascist, just so it stops being confusing for people and we can figure out, you know, who's responsible for the fuckery. Because if we're using these words like neoliberals, neocons, well, they've formed a uniparty. They're just one blob now, right? And if we're all fighting fascism, or really what we're all fighting on both sides is the extreme tyrannical power of when the private sector and the public sector merge. People on the right are calling it Marxism and communism. People on the left are calling it fascism. But the neoliberals and the neocons support the same shit that in practice would be fascist or Marxist by either of those definitions, as people on the establishment left and right, you know, understand it right now. So I think we should just use the same word for all of them. Democrats and Republicans, uniparty, neoliberals, neocons, authoritarian, fascist pieces of crap.
Yeah, I've said the entire time that we've had this show, like, I don't care what color or kind of hat you're wearing. If it's authoritarian, I oppose it. I do. I don't care if it's got, you know, like one shiny fucking black star on it or 50. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I do. We reported before the 6th how odd it was that $188 million had been allocated to repair the furnishings and replace furnishings and do upkeep and maintenance on the grounds of the Capitol building. And
that I did not know. That's really
it's in the coronavirus relief package. We reported on it, like, because Trump's whole point was there's unnecessary money being allocated in this bill. I don't,
5K page bill.
Give me a new bill and raise the pittance that you're giving the peasantry in the United States from $600 to $2,000, and they'll be able to do so much, you know. And so we saw the thing about the Capitol building. So we did a video about it. We're like, this is fucking weird. Why? What is it? A, what does this have to do with coronavirus? And B, like, why are we the only people talking about it? The following week, I'm in DC. I'm standing at, you know, ground zero for a giant fucking psyop going, oh, hey, that $200 million for fixing the Capitol sure makes a whole lot of sense now.
Yeah. Wild.
And I've yet to see my contemporaries and my colleagues here in the independent media make that connection. And maybe we could start maybe we could encourage some of those folks to look into that. But I mean, this shit is this is why over on the Rockfin the episode is titled Whitney Webb is Still Right, because this is shit that we've been talking about for a very long time now. And I think that we've been like relatively calm and relatively like comedic about it, but it's about time to start shaking motherfuckers. Because I don't know what our window of pushback is.
The window of pushback is not very long, I think, because obviously what happened on January 6th is the opening act and it's not the last. they did not manufacture enough consent for a war on domestic terror with that one event. There's going to be something else, and we can assume it's going to be bigger.
It's going to take place this weekend with the like on the 17th or something, and going up until the inauguration. That's what agencies are being briefed on now.
Right. So and that's coming from the FBI, right? Which, has been setting up entrapment plots for this. They made a pivot from entrapping Muslim Americans in terror plots to white male Americans. They announced that last March in order to basically manufacture consent for this war on domestic terror that they and DHS have been promoting, because DHS is very invested in this, because currently, officially, the FBI is responsible for investigating domestic terror, but DHS has wanted in on that for a very long time. And these domestic terror laws that are being introduced or already have been introduced over the course of this week do that. They add DHS and all the fusion centers, which are basically FBI. That's sort of how the DHS was getting around the fact that it's the FBI that's supposed to investigate domestic terror stuff, was through fusion centers, which are like the FBI field offices. There's several of them throughout the country. It's FBI field offices there.
The Assange
DHS.
community, real quick, the Assange community, Slow News Day, all that shit. We've been railing against fusion centers for years now, and there's only a couple of pockets of the internet where you'll find like rational, thorough discussions and descriptions of what fusion centers are, and I'm glad you're bringing them up now.
For fusion centers, CIA's Phoenix program in Vietnam. Surprise. Please go read the book on the Phoenix program by Doug Valentine. You'll see a lot of parallels. Even back then in the late 60s, they were using computer algorithms to generate lists of people to hunt down. And now we have Palantir labeling Americans under the label subversive. They've been doing that for years, and building upon the main core continuity of government protocol set up by the Iran-Contra war criminals during the Reagan administration, who, by the way, were directly involved in setting up Palantir. So Palantir is really a successor to that, and was, started with CIA funding, and their only client for the first 3 years of their existence was the CIA. They're a CIA front, basically. So
not to mention that the same people who were involved in the continuity of government protocols almost all had major positions within the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm. Or, they're very prominent in that same, like, pro-Trump, media sphere, like Oliver North now, right, goes on Fox News a lot, and he, was head of the NRA. Maybe he still is, but, man, the gun-running guy for Iran-Contra being put in charge of the NRA was pretty funny. I prefer Charlton Heston, I think.
There was a moment where, with that whole, like, was her name Maria Butina, that like fake Russian spy scandal, where there was a great moment where it was like, I could have never predicted that an organization with Oliver North at the head of it would be involved in such an explosive scandal.
Nice.
The irony meter was broken. This is my whole fucking thing about the Large Hadron Collider. Like, it started as a joke because irony died in 2016. Completely dead. Nuance. Completely fucking dead. And so I was looking for someone to blame, and then I stumbled across an article about how like the weasel got in the collider and it fucking and so it made for a great bit. But now it's like, holy fuck, dude, did I accidentally figure this shit out? But I mean, we really, irony's fucking dead, and it just it kills me. They're talking about digitally removing Trump from movies now.
Oh, like Little Rascals?
Like Little Rascals, like Home Alone 2. There's a scene in Home Alone 2 where he talks to little Culkin or whatever, and like now the kids, like grown up Macaulay Culkin, is like, please remove Donald Trump from this video because that's what triggers me, not the fucking 20 years I spent in Hollywood.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what they're trying to do is set up, sort of like Alex Jones at one point was like the poster boy for deplatforming. They're doing that with Trump now, but what they're doing is beyond just social media deplatforming, it's internet depersoning. Right. And, and I think a lot of impeachment, too, besides from distracting everyone, is probably to an extent aimed at preventing Trump from ever running for political office again.
100%.
Because why would you do it right when he's about to leave? Dude's got like 6 days left.
You got to give Mike Pence something to do other than run away from gay thoughts, Whitney. So if he gets to be president for a week, then that's just one more thing to, occupy his time.
I guess so. Oh, man.
My favorite part of this show is when I make Whitney laugh like that. And the only reason I still do other interviews is so eventually we can come back around to this moment. I fucking... They've wanted Mike Pence to be president like this entire time because he's a yes man to the establishment. Like the only reason Pence is there is to like temper Donald Trump, and to have that voice of, no, this is what the money wants you to do, and so if they get 6 days of Mike Pence, we could see some ridiculous executive orders come out of the pipeline too.
Oh yeah, totally. And remember, he's part of that same apocalyptic evangelical strain that Pompeo is. Mm-hmm. So in the last couple days, you have Pence and Pompeo together. Pompeo was just meeting with the head of Mossad and all of that stuff. Was like seen openly meeting with him, doing all this stuff and making all these last minute pushes with Iran and Yemen, clearly setting something up to honor the memory of Sheldon Adelson, whose whole thing in backing Trump was, to get the embassy moved and all of that stuff, right? But also for his war with Iran, because he's been trying to get us to nuke Iran since like 2014, 2015. Sheldon Adelson, he's dead. That's awesome. That's the best thing that's happened this year, probably.
I know, 2021 starting off okay, a little weird. I mean, it does kind of like it puts a bright spot on that whole like we're all domestic terrorists now. I'll be able to throw a Death Day anniversary party for Sheldon Adelson at the dissident camp.
Well, and in his last few days as well here, Mike Pompeo also put Cuba back on the fucking terrorist watch list or what. It's like what that dude is doing should concern people more than this impeachment bullshit, along with the laws that Congress is trying to pass should concern people more than this impeachment bullshit. It's like how so many of these idiots let Pompeo just slide under the radar because they hate Trump so much is appalling, and it's stupid. And no, I know that you don't want Trump's whole administration out there. I know you're not campaigning against Trump because you want Pompeo out there. No, it's because you're fucking stupid and short-sighted. Because look who's coming in. Biden's coming in. And now all these people are cheering on his new fucking CIA pick. The same guy that was picked to lead the delegation to Russia to try and bring back Snowden to the U.S. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I'm very disturbed to see independent media acting like Biden's not as bad as we thought because his CIA director pick is okay. Listen to yourselves. Oh my God. No, abolish the CIA. We don't need one. It could have been worse. He could have put let me in charge of the CIA, but he didn't. So I guess Biden's great. Let's start clapping and patting ourselves on the back because we beat Trump. Yep. I mean, Aaron Matei tweeted that shit out and all right, dude. No.
And for Aaron to tweet it out based on the fact that John Kiriakou was okay with it, look, man, I like John. John's a friend of mine. I talk to John a couple of times a month. I'm not going to take his advice on who the CIA director is because I believe he's still too close to the organization, but I'm definitely going to consider his opinion along with the opinions of everyone else who I consider while I formulate my thoughts about something, but it's not going to be driving it. It's not going to be I'm not going to make a decision just because John said he's comfortable with it, or Aaron Mate said he's comfortable with it.
Well,
Aaron Mate is the first guy who says, I'm in this for a career. I want to be doing this.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell he's in it for that, with his whole, I'll never interview or have anyone on that's ever questioned 9/11. All right, dude. Well, if we don't question 9/11, we can't figure out how the hell we've gotten here to the coming war on domestic terror, right? Or the real history of why, the past 20 years, or the foreign policy that he and Gray Zone report on, At this point, refusing to look at the evidence of 9/11 is either, it's cowardice, or you're a plant, period, I think, at this point.
Ooh, I think this is a perfect time to promo Sunday's show with Richard Gage, the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. He'll be on the program here at 1 p.m. Eastern. You should tune in for that, everyone. You should, because
sounds good.
We don't sleep on 9/11 Truth on this show.
No,
Come
well,
at me,
we
Aaron,
shouldn't.
okay?
We shouldn't, because, like, even, having this, going back to QAnon for a second, and how everyone that's QAnon is now a domestic terrorist and all of this stuff. There's been this, Jason Burmis has been talking a lot about this because of how the mainstream media has been trying to rope loose change, the 9/11 Truth documentary he was involved with, into the QAnon narrative, and claiming that 9/11 Truth is what produced QAnon, which is obviously false.
Yes. Yeah.
But basically what that does is trying to tie in, before the FBI leaked its own document saying QAnon's a domestic terror threat, they said conspiracy theories are a domestic terror threat. And they've been they're basically moving to criminalize questioning 9/11. If you're not allowed to ask questions about one of the biggest events in U.S. history, and you could argue global history, particularly the last 20 years, and you're okay with that, get out of independent media and go turn in your resume to CNN, and stop acting like you're here for, the benefit of the public. You're a careerist hack, and fuck off.
And look, dude, and Aaron's the first guy to say up front, yeah, I'm a careerist. I'm trying to do this for my entire life. This was something that I wanted to do since I was a little kid, and I'm not going to fuck that up by going too far into the realm of truth. Like, and so there's a fucking, like, it's so hard to,
well, he should,
it's so hard for me to rationalize having that understanding and seeing, like, I'm not the type to pull back. I'm not, obviously I did the shows that we do, and the content that we get into, like, yeah, I'm coming at it from an activist perspective. I'm not coming at it from I want a nice cushy fucking den, well, like, in a, go ahead.
If you're a careerist in independent media at this point, you have lost the plot, because you're not going to have a freaking career if you don't start calling it like it is right now. Look at the economic calamity they are engineering and what they're doing to society. You think they're going to let you give any pushback against imperialism, even if it's like anti-imperialist light? They are going to, they're already at the point where Google and the national security state are looking at having news being written by AI algorithms. Your job is on the way out. Right. So if you're like, I want to be here so that I can be a prominent voice and get my blue check mark on Twitter, and people will listen to me because I want to feed my ego, time for a reality check, because you're not even going to get that. You're not even going to get that. And, if we don't start moving and shaking or whatever in the next couple of weeks, really, we're all fucked. So, this
you're
whole
absolutely right,
thing,
dude.
The world's on fire. You're not going to have a career unless it's going to be in a freaking nuclear crater, COVID crater, or whatever, at some point in the next couple of months, probably.
Peter Thiel isn't going to let you in his bunker so you can broadcast confirmation bias to the rest of fucking progressive YouTube. That's not how this is going to play out. It's just fucking not. Like, wrap your fucking eggheads around that, dude. I can't. I've been trying to tell these guys before, like, politely. Do you know how hard it is for me to be polite, Whitney Webb? Do you have any fucking idea?
I can imagine.
Yes.
been trying to politely tell these fucks this for like the last year and a half, 2 years, and now we're literally standing at the fucking edge of, you know,
The abyss, dude.
a fucking technopoly.
Yeah.
And these guys are like, okay, but can we just distract from what's happening?
I know, bro, never mind being polite. I send some of these fucks super chats so they can even say, just so they can not even get into Warp Speed, not even get into Palantir, just to say Julian Assange's name. And they can't even do that shit. Like, no, we don't owe these fucks shit. They are digging their own fucking grave, like, day by day, and they don't realize it. It's like with Aaron Matei. Like, you think because you skirt around 9/11 and off Warp Speed that they're not going to come at you for your work in the OPCW, which was like, it was great work. But I mean, you're openly acknowledging the fact that you won't go into deeper stuff, and saying to all
in that OPCW
work, Kyle Kalinske, Cenk Uygur, Jordan Charlotts, and all you fucks, okay?
FEMA that he reports on all the time, right, was a false flag. 9/11 was a false flag. I guess we can only talk about a single false flag.
There's only room for one. Pasta just paid $5 to quote Aaron Mate. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this. He said, according to Aaron Mate, it would be way too difficult to pull off a mass rigging like the 2020 election.
I mean,
but it's not because it's source code. It's not because the machines have always been operationally rigged.
2004 in Ohio, that's like documented. Swung it for Bush illegally.
Just a few days ago, we had Commander X on the show. One of the oldest members of the Anonymous Hacktivist Collective, who is like taking his mask off and is laying down to retire, and it's probably going to be the last interview he ever gives. Pretty fucking emotional, pretty fucking heavy. And he started off the interview talking about a very public anonymous operation, Vendetta, where they went into the voting machines in Ohio and Florida in 2012. And once they got in there, they were like, shit, there's already people running around in the voting machines. So they traced them to the fucking Ohio Republican National Headquarters. And like, this is all fucking public information. It's almost a decade old now. And yet the I don't know, the cool kids table at fucking Indie Media, like, is bending themselves into pretzels trying to make it seem like this particular election was the safest and secure and most free and fair election that ever took place in the history of anywhere ever always. And dude, you're not going to have a career after this. You're not going to have a fucking way to communicate to people after this if you don't take a fucking stand for it now. And it starts with acknowledging fundamental truths. Elections are rigged and fucking fundamentally flawed. 9/11 was a fucking psyop. Like, you need to recognize this shit. And you're doing your audiences so much disservice by not. You know, walking around half informed means you have a 50% grade. 50% doesn't pass anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're in real trouble if people in the progressives can't realize who the real enemy is, and that this is a class war, and that it's about the elites versus what is becoming the neo-feudal class, the underclass of everybody that's not in the elite. It's a class war. It's not about, and progressives should really be the first to be able to identify that, you would think, right? This isn't about the person with the MAGA hat on or the person with the Trump lawn sign. We are being divided and conquered because the elites right now are playing for keeps. They are playing for keeps in such a way that they are not only moving to criminalize dissent with this new war on domestic terror, they're aiming to do so via technocracy in a way that we will be so enslaved by our own technology that we're cheering on right now. A lot of people are willingly putting into our homes, like Alexa, that people will never be able to organize or mount mount a rebellion ever again. And it's honestly insane. And we're allowing these same people to inject unstudied stuff into us, into our body, as a way to allow us to go back to have a little bit of freedom back, and all of this stuff. And we're acting like, and we have people in independent media acting like that the biggest news right now is, AOC's little Twitch monologue and her, gold chain face mask.
Hey, look, man, I appreciate a callback to the days of Run DMC as much as anyone.
I was about to say that, but that's
were you going Run DMC with that shit?
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's like very obvious. It
is, man. It's the Tougher Than Leather album cover from fucking 1986. Fuck
yeah, but who wore it better? Run DMC wore it better, because you don't have it dangling like a weirdo chain beard when you're like,
somebody please Photoshop AOC's face over fucking one of the original members of Run DMC and send it to me. Please do that. Like, today's gonna be a win if that happens. Really. Get on that shit. That's fucking. But no, I mean, you're right. And dude, I really think that we have a very small window of time to push back against this.
Yes, we do. And it has to be local. Going to the Capitol anymore is a trap. I don't care what your political movement is. Don't go. Whether you're a Trump supporter or a leftist or wherever you fall, if you think about going to a rally now in DC, no, the solution isn't going to come from national politics. It's time to decentralize and get local and try and establish some control over your own life at the local level at this point, just because of restrictions of movement and the militarization of DC right now, and the laws they're trying to pass specifically for federally owned buildings. You think that's going to go well in DC, of all places? Basically, what happened on January 6th is the criminalization forever of sit-in style protests, which, of course, if you remember from the civil rights movement, was one of the main ways that ended up affecting real change. They don't want that to happen. And now, so-called progressive movements that used to do sit-ins like Sunrise and whatever, I don't think they're terrorists now if they try and do that again. See how this works? Occupying federal property is now being treated as an act of domestic terrorism. The state will use that to criminalize sit-ins, period, on any federal.
I do think that we're gonna see some performative showmanship on the part of the state on this, where like state-sanctioned limited hangouts like Sunrise Movement are still allowed to sit a state, hold an event.
Well, but maybe.
Because it entraps people to go fucking start their own. If they see that like one organization or one particular movement is still allowed, quote unquote, to protest, then it keeps people thinking that they can organize and they can hold their own events. And as soon as they go try to do it, they'll be hit with this domestic terrorist shit. And then they'll have to find a new limited hangout. But, or will they? Because fucking, dude, there's still people that genuinely believe that Sunrise Movement is on the level.
I'm just amazed, though, too, that we are calling all these people that were at the Capitol, without knowing the ideology of the thousands of people that were there, domestic terrorists, when we can't call people like Mike Pompeo, Dick Cheney, Elliot Abrams, all of these freaking war criminal assholes, Henry Kissinger, domestic terrorists. That's what they all are. Henry Kissinger is responsible for so many acts of terror abroad. Right? Why can't we send that asshole, blobby asshole, to prison? No, we're talking about rounding up people that just happen to be there or were flagged in by the cops and stuff like that. Obviously, there were provocateurs there. Obviously, there were violent people there. But that's obviously not everyone there, dude.
And if the provocateurs and the people who engaged in violence at the Capitol, because I was there, so fucking small compared to the size of the crowd. I mean, the people that I talked to, Whitney, they were there because they had felt like they had been disenfranchised through the electoral process. And these are like just political neophytes who are really, for the first time, getting involved in any sort of direct action, any sort of concept of direct democracy. And God love their gullibility, because I lost mine a long fucking time ago, you know. But I mean, they really felt like this is their only chance, or maybe their biggest and best chance, to have some sort of political agency by showing up to this thing on the 6th. On the plane ride back, I sat with those same people who said we were used as set dressing. We got played, and we fucking know it. And so, at least for the people that were on the plane ride with me, they left that event with the understanding that they'd been taken for a fucking ride. Now, the reaction has got to be, all of these people need to be classified as domestic terrorists, because they have the understanding that they've been taken for a ride. And now they'd like some actual agency. And that's the fucking problem, is that people are becoming aware of just how fucked over they've been, especially on the right, especially in that Trump crowd or in that Q crowd, where a little bit of understanding goes a long fucking way.
Yeah. No, good point. And I also think it's worth pointing out, so like in terms of like the time window we have here, people should not, despite reading tweets like Aaron Matei's that we were talking about earlier, should have no illusions about what's going to happen once the Biden administration is in power. They are going to steamroll your right so fast, it will make your head spin. It's very clear how they have set this up to go, and the people that they've put in charge. Samantha Power at USAID, Victoria Nuland, former foreign policy advisor to Dick Cheney, back in the State Department, responsible for the Ukraine coup. And I mean, Trump is on board with this. They just set up a new AI initiative that's going to totally benefit the Silicon Valley backers of the Biden administration just a couple days ago. They're moving more U.S. troops into Syria from Iraq right now, when, of course, the Biden State Department is a lot like Obama's State Department, which, of course, was responsible for fomenting, the dirty war on Syria. It looks like that's going to start up again, and I don't know.
I mean, you know as well as I do, because we both talk to Bealey regularly. But I mean, Syrians are freaked the fuck out right now.
They should be, because the coming war on Iran isn't just going to be Iran. It's going to be Iran, Hezbollah, meaning Lebanon, and Syria all at once. It's going to be the whole resistance axis. They're going to go pow, pow, pow. That's how they've been setting it up this whole time. So yeah, I mean, they have every reason to. And to think that, Biden wouldn't be on board with that because of the Iran nuclear deal, I mean, that is so delusional. They are so tied up with Zionists. I mean, Netanyahu dropped Trump so fast after the election and was like, Biden, and Biden's the guy that's like, you don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist. I'm a Zionist.
Yes.
Screaming
blah, 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 blah.
Screaming it.
And
if Israel doesn't happen, we'll make it happen.
Yeah, he said that. Joe Biden said that. If Israel didn't happen, we would have had to make it happen. Then Biden puts the fucking monster who gave us Libya, who gave us the fucking slave state in Libya, puts her in charge of USAID.
The CIA cutout.
Yeah.
That funded all the EcoHealth Alliance people and those crazy guys, among a ton of other stuff, and a lot of this predictive pandemic prevention stuff that's basically like the healthcare version of pre-crime that's being set up by Google and the military, MITRE Corporation and Microsoft even, and a bunch of these guys, right? Because I want to point that out, talking about pre-crime for domestic terrorism. Just wait until this gets wrapped into the healthcare COVID predictive diagnosis stuff. We have to quarantine you because we've determined that you will likely develop COVID in 12 days, even though you have no symptoms. This has all been set up already. One of the companies that does that is currently being used in Rhode Island, thanks to Gina Raimondo, who I believe has been appointed to a cabinet position in the Biden administration, right? You have Salesforce, which is also has ties to the Biden administration. Mark Benioff, a big part of the World Economic Forum. They're part of that too, creating this basically this system where government agencies determine that you're a patient at risk of exposure to COVID-19. Patient at risk of exposure to COVID-19, then you're not a patient, right? You're just a regular person, but that's how they refer to these people. And so if they think you're at risk, of developing COVID-19, they can mandate mandatory COVID-19 tests or treatments as determined by the government. So all of this stuff is being set up. And to think they're not going to combine that with this whole pre-crime thing. I mean, it's all the same entities doing both, and they share data, and they're doing it in all these different spheres. And that's why I think this controlled opposition of the progressive movement only wants to talk about Medicare for all. So, okay, you get socialized medicine, but what if the whole medical system is built around this pre-crime, transhumanist, crazy shit? Okay, great. My medical service is now free, but it's going to turn me, the medical system's is run by Google and Silicon Valley and is all this pre-crime stuff. And I have to wear, a wearable to monitor me for COVID-19 and all of this stuff. I mean, I think we should start thinking about that and why that's the only issue that you're going to see progressives in Congress champion now, aside from everyone I don't like is a domestic terrorist.
Well, AOC already did a whole IG story, of herself getting that freaking, I'm assuming it was saline, but getting the Pfizer vaccine and doing a whole narrative management segment for every Zoomer on Instagram to see. And it's just so disgusting to see all these progressives spearheading this new wave of authoritarianism that's just going to crash into us. It's like people that don't fall for anything all of a sudden fall flat on their face at COVID and fall flat on their face with this whole fucking partisan wall of bullfuckery that is this whole manufactured narrative bubble of the Capitol riots. And it's
but what a great way to separate the wheat from the chaff with independent media, COVID-19, and now this shit has been. It's really easy to see now who has integrity and who doesn't, or not necessarily just that, but the people who are easily emotionally manipulated by events like this, and the people that are able to be objective and look at what's going on, keep their eyes on the real enemy and the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, and not just focusing on these superficial narratives or buying in, to these these narratives that promote things that no one actually wants, right? So it's been useful in that sense, I think, for a lot of people in terms of I've been listening to this person for years, but now they're saying this, or acting like this, and things like that. Especially when things like COVID first started, people who were willing to reevaluate their positions about some of this stuff over the course of the year versus people who still toe the same line they were in March, despite all the different things that have come out. I think it's pretty telling and should be pretty useful to consumers of independent media.
It has been.
I mean, what cracks me up is that when a couple of those people accidentally have Whitney Webb on their show, the chat
sometimes they don't air it.
The chat doesn't know how to react. Like, and the audience doesn't know how to react. And a couple of those hosts end up looking like, oh shit, what have I done? It's
I can
a
think of one very
wonderful,
clear example of that.
wonderful
I think
moment.
I know which example it is.
It really is. No,
Okay.
I mean, it's an absolutely wonderful moment for me. I know. I just I try really hard to be, I don't know, dude. Like, I don't want to make anyone's day worse for them if I think that they're actually trying to get at, the root of all of this shit and do good work. So I'm gonna pull back a little bit from where I want to. But I would say that if your phone isn't ringing off the hook from people in independent media wanting to call and apologize and fucking have you on their show,
It's not.
yeah, I mean, man,
Let's be real.
I don't understand how you could look at what we're doing here outside of the corporate media space and think that you're going to have a future if you're not hammering home just how vital this information is every fucking single day and who the real fucking enemy is. Because we've got this like personality pissing contest that goes on in so much of the media landscape, and it distracts from the fact that we know who's fucking running the show right now. And we know who the people who are like pushing the narrative are. So why are we worried about some idiotic personality contest when we need to fucking hammer home exactly what's heading our direction? I don't know, dude. Fucking doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm not trying to make a bunch of money off of confirmation bias porn.
Yeah. And I mean, so, I don't get to watch a lot of other people's shows that often. But someone showed me I'd never seen it before, the first time ever, the Humanist Report. I've seen him on Twitter, right? But I've never watched his stuff. But the dude was literally like, we must stop Trump supporters because, or like the problem with Trump supporters is that they're all too stupid. And we can't solve their stupidity, ergo, they will be a domestic terror threat forever. Their stupidity? I mean, what an arrogant prick, dude.
Dude, that guy makes his living off of the fact that his audience is only there for the confirmation bias, because his arguments are in such bad faith that if you look at him for like 2 seconds, you're like, holy fuck, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. But it's, again, man, it's the way that the progressive audience has been trained, and this is the Young Turks business model that so many of these other shows have fucking followed.
Yeah, they have, because it worked for them, right? So why wouldn't it work for everyone else?
Run a clip of mainstream media, wag your finger. Run a clip of an establishment politician, wag your finger. Okay, now let's run the next clip and let's keep wagging our finger. Okay, donate to me. Don't, if you like having your fucking synapses and neurons tickled with confirmation bias, keep the money train flowing. Meanwhile, those same organizations are taking millions of dollars from fucking Clinton-funded donors or shit like that. Wow, fucking squeezing, regular working progressives for their fucking hard-earned nickels and dimes. And you're not learning anything. You're not going anywhere with it. You're just feeling better about your impending doom. And that's not how anybody should be doing journalism.
Well, a lot of people, I think, even don't realize this whole, what the end game is and where this is going. There are still too many people, including in independent media, who are like, oh, yeah, well, things will go back to the normal by the end of this year because that's what Fauci and all these guys have been saying. Like, no, dude.
There's no going back, you dumb fucks.
Years. Yeah, and they've told you already that there's no new normal. We're gonna live with COVID forever. All of this stuff, right? So, but a lot of people don't want to face reality. A lot of people don't want to face reality. And really, I think in terms of something that's probably happening right now in the U.S., a lot of people are having to face reality that haven't had to face it before because all their distractions, going to the bar, doing this, doing that, out in town or whatever, socializing with their friends. I mean, none of that's there anymore. So they can't keep distracting themselves and numbing themselves to the reality of what their government does domestically and abroad. And of course, everything that the U.S. has been doing abroad for the past several decades is now coming home to roost in the U.S. Because no one in the U.S., so many people, and when I lived in the U.S., I saw this a lot. No one wanted to do anything because they're like, well, the war on terror, yeah, it's killing millions of brown people and my tax money is going to that, but I have beer and Netflix and my life is comfortable and I don't care, was always the response, right? So that type of failure to take responsibility for what you're paying into and even, you're technically being complicit in because you're refusing to denounce it or do anything about it. If you follow that whole silence is complicity thing, right? This is what happens. We get a war on domestic terror. And now you're, the Iraqi or the Afghani that's going to be hunted down by the CIA, basically.
Yeah,
I mean
vaccine manufacturers themselves are saying even if you get this vaccine on top of the nonstop surveillance we're going to have to do on you for the next one or for the next years after, you still have to wear a mask and you still have to socially distance. The World Economic Forum is putting out fucking Great Reset trailer porn talking about you won't be able to rent and you'll like it. So the people running the show are being very, very clear about what they want to do to us and what's going to happen, and people aren't seeing it.
Yeah, no, that's for real. And going back to independent media, a lot of people are scared of being called conspiracy theorists because now they're saying, oh, the Great Reset is a conspiracy theory, when it is the most blatant shit ever. Like Time Magazine, which is, by the way, owned by Mark Benioff, who's on the board of trustees of the World Economic Forum and the inaugural chair of the World Economic Forum's Fourth Industrial Revolution Committee, put out a whole issue saying the Great Reset is wonderful. This is so great. Let's do it. You know, and Klaus Schwab goes out there. They make their agenda very clear. I mean, it's wild. And if you watch some of the speeches that came out of Davos last year, they're about to have it again at the end of this month. There is one by this Israeli guy, Noah Harari. He says the most wild shit ever in that video at Davos. He's basically like, in the coming future, even if you go to a speech, you know, talking about this technocratic system, you go and watch a speech of Dear Later, you look happy and you're clapping, but if inside you're angry, they will know and you'll be in the gulag the next morning. That's how the World Economic Forum people are thinking of people in independent media. There's a lot of them that are too scared to talk about this stuff because they don't want to be called names. They don't want to be called conspiracy theorists or whatever. But sorry, that label doesn't mean that something isn't happening, and it's obviously happening. And the elites are like laughing in our face right now, dude. They're like, look how easy it is to divide and conquer these people. Look how easy it is to manipulate progressives using their emotions. And get them to sign up for the very stuff that has been been used to dismantle leftist movements by force and by murder. Right?
I got a lot of pushback initially, and a lot of hate mail initially when I started saying that progressives are the most gullible voting bloc that we have in this country. And I say that knowing that there's a significant portion of Trump voters who believe that Jesus himself, you know, anointed Donald Trump and made him president. Like, progressives are still more gullible than that. You know, as gullible as it is to think that the divine hand of the Lord had something to do with the U.S. presidential election. Yeah, progressives are far worse than that. And I don't enjoy being right about this shit, but here we are.
Progressives were lining up to give their money to Ed fucking Markey just because of the Green New Grift and just because AOC campaigned for him and told them to give Ed Markey their money. Like, we're talking about the fucking telecom guy. Like, that's Ed Markey, and he was some like second coming of Bernie Sanders for months just because AOC was riding his coattails.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, that's wild and pathetic. And I was totally going to say something and lost my train of thought because I got mad again. This happens. It was an important point, but maybe I'll remember.
Well, I hope it comes back. I do. While we've got a lot of content creators in the live chat right now, I would like to remind you guys that if you're not having Whitney on your show, you're fucking dumb. And also, if you're not having people on your show who are on the ground at the fucking Capitol, insurrection.
Man.
You're
crazy too,
really missing the plot.
Now the Trump people are being told by like their media sphere that their only hope is Trump invoking the Insurrection Act. At the same time, they're being labeled insurrectionists by MSM. Who do you think the Insurrection Act is going to be used against? The insurrectionist, dipshit. I mean, that should be really abundantly clear. And the fact that people are cheering that on and being like, that's going to save us when all the FBI's opened up all these domestic terror investigations, potential, domestic care cases. I mean, it's really clear what's going on. And the point I was going to make earlier is basically what's going on, I think, to an extent with progressives. Why they're a lot of them are being easily manipulated in this case is because of their very understandable, and something I share with them, a rejection of ethno-nationalism. But we have to keep in mind, who are the real freaking Nazis in the United States? Can we go back to Operation Paperclip for a second? The Nazis were brought over by the CIA and put to work. Allen Dulles was a Nazi sympathizer that was basically a traitor to Franklin Delano Roosevelt during the war. And he was the CIA's first director. And their ideological successors, the people at the CIA now were trained by those people, a lineage of freaking Nazis, and they're the ones setting up this domestic terror thing. And we're being told the other people that they're going to try and, lock up are the Nazis. Well, let's remember where the Nazis have been this whole freaking time and how they've never been held accountable for anything they've freaking done at the CIA, ever. The Church Committee was a joke and was neutered, basically, and, brought some crimes to light, but nothing happened to the CIA. And they know they're unaccountable. I mean, what do you think they're going to do? They think they have all the cards and all the power, and they're making big moves right now. That's for sure.
While we're running with Operation Paperclip, and if you guys aren't familiar with Operation Paperclip, like there's a ton of great information out there on it. Basically, if you want to put it in sports terms, it was the Nazi draft. Okay, like at the end of World War II. All of the Allied countries were competing with each other for who got to pick up the Nazi scientists, and as a result of that, we have NASA, and NASA's primary function at this point is not space exploration but surveillance, and I don't think enough people know that. I don't think enough people are like hip to the fact that the space program as it stands is more or less an extension of the wet dreams of the Stasi.
Right. And Space Force just added to the intelligence community. Now it's both a branch of the military and a member of the intelligence community. So now the U.S. has 18 intelligence agencies.
Well, you hate to settle on an odd number.
I know, right?
And I mean, I just can't
let's round up
on
to 20
enough. Because, there's so much people coming in, so many activists, so many people on the left coming in we need to punch a Nazi and we need to stop the Nazis on the streets. It's bro, if you want to stop the fucking Nazis, look to the CIA fucking yay. This is listen, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I don't have experiences with racism that fucking predate and ever getting involved into politics. Knowing all that, having all that, I still recognize that the most dangerous people are up top. They're in the fucking CIA and the FBI and the DHS and all of those fucking organizations, and I don't know what makes people realize that.
If we're gonna storm something, why not storm Silicon Valley that's fused with the national security state? Why not storm Langley frickin' Virginia and CIA headquarters and punch the real frickin' Nazis, dude? Okay. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this whole thing is about getting us pointing the finger at the neighbor, dividing the class that they want to make all of us, neo-feudal serfs. And we're fighting amongst each other while they consolidate power for them so that none of the neo-feudal serfs, left or right, are ever going to be able to rebel against their slavery by their oligarch overlords.
I mean, they've been pushing for this snitch culture so hard.
This started in World War I. People need to go back and look at the history of World War I, not just how World War started and what it was really about, but what happened in the U.S. at the time. Because that was when they passed the Sedition Act that was used to go after whistleblowers. And it's no coincidence that after January 6th, you have all the people like Ilhan Omar being that was an act of sedition. Sedition is the slipperiest legal slope to charge someone with, because it's basically, advocating the overthrow of part or all of the U.S. government. So if I say something like we need to abolish the CIA, it's not hard to charge me for sedition.
Right. No, okay. I'm glad you brought this up, and I would like to.
Well, I have more really quick about World War I because I might have to go soon. But there was
Okay.
one...
Well, let's do that because I've got a lot to follow up on there. So go ahead.
Right, so I'll just add one more thing. There was this organization in World War I that was basically, I don't even know how to describe them. Kind of like brown shirts, I guess. They were called the American Protective League. This is World War I, by the way, in the United States. The American Protective League made their own badges. They went around acting like they were cops. Woodrow Wilson's attorney general was like, yeah, we know what they're doing and we like what they're doing, so we're going to let them do it and we're not going to intervene and quasi-deputize them. Like, didn't officially deputize them, but we're like, yeah, go do this. And what they did, they went around to American households that they believed through their little snitch intelligence network were disloyal to the U.S. war effort in World War I, and they did citizen arrests of 40,000 people for being disloyal to the war effort, being anti-war. The history of this goes way back, and people should, it could never happen here. All right, well, it's already happened. We already put people in internment camps because of their ethnicity, I mean, it's not, I mean, what do you think DHS has been doing this whole time, on the border and all of that stuff? I mean, it's not hard to see what's going on here. And you want to make a war on domestic terror headed by DHS? Look at who DHS and all this pre-crime shit has been tested on. African Americans, the whole predictive policing thing, which was started by Palantir, basically, piloted in African American majority communities in New Orleans and Los Angeles. DHS, obviously Latin American immigrants that come across the border. What kind of rights do they have? Why are they separating children from families? When is that type of stuff going to be applied to regular Americans that aren't immigrants? In a war in domestic terror, the gloves are going to come off and you're not going to like it. So if you're rubber stamping this shit, shame on you. You better get ready for what's coming and, buckle up. But, we're really at the point where, yeah, we have to choose a side. You're either backing this war in domestic terror, you're against it. And I don't want to be like, AOC and you're either with us or the terrorists. But
Whitney W. Bush.
There was this conservative kid in high school that used to troll me by calling me W because I hated Bush so much.
Wow.
Memories. Anyway, fuck that kid. Anyway, well, one time a seagull shit on his face when he was yelling at me. So
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, good times. Yeah.
The one-time seagulls are good for something.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, I forgot where I was going with this, but basically, we are really at a huge crossroads here, and we have to start thinking about solutions, how we're going to do stuff. And the answer, I've been saying this a lot, and so have a lot of other people. It's time to get local. It's time to organize locally. It's time to stop being dependent on our Silicon Valley overlords that have merged with the state. Okay, there is no distinguishing between Silicon Valley and the intelligence and military communities anymore. They're the same. The evidence is all there. I've laid it out in articles and numerous interviews. So it's really, it's time to be like, we have to remember who the real enemy is. And it's not the people that are, also in this great underclass that they're trying to create. And we really need to remember that. And it's really hard not to be angry at some people, whether it's QAnon or progressives that are cheering this on, right? But we have to remember too, they're not the enemy. They're not our real enemy. And we have to remember who really is. So, and maybe we shit on some people today, but at the end of the day, it's to try and push them to reevaluate what they're doing and realize who the real enemy is. Because if we don't reach critical mass on that front, why we still have platforms on the internet, we could be in some real deep shit. And I'd really, I prefer not to see that, honestly, especially if you have kids, dude. I mean, think about the kind of future this is going to be for your kids, and the fact that they're talking about taking kids away from their parents based on their political views and what candidates they support. I mean, what the fuck? It's nuts.
Yeah,
nuts.
We're getting pretty fucked over right now.
I mean,
yeah, and look, man, I'm not, you're right, dude. I'm not shitting on Aaron Mate because he's a bad person. I'm trying, anytime I've ever, and people fucking, oh my God, dude, I'm not looking forward to my Twitter account, after this interview
I
because
don't really read my mentions anymore. I
yeah,
understand.
anytime I say anything remotely critical of Aaron Mate, my fucking shit just explodes. And people are like, why are you picking on Aaron? He's such a good ally. And it's a bad. Look,
Man.
dude, I want him to do better. That's my own, always and only. Always and only. Just, put aside the fact that you want to make a career out of what you're doing and recognize that you don't get to have a career unless you take a stand right fucking now.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all. And hopefully, that sentiment gets expressed clearly enough that you, instead of coming at me for being like, Aaron, please do better, you come at Aaron and you go, Aaron, please do better. I don't know. It shouldn't be rough. Whitney, you're trying to get out of here, right?
Well, I got a couple minutes. I got probably like 15 minutes tops. Gotta wrap.
Well, let's make it let's make good use of that 15 minutes, and then we got to get out of here too. We'll be back at 4:30 Pacific with John Fitch, MMA legend, co-host of Mixed Martial Mindset with Jason Burmis. Looking forward to that talk. But holy fuck, man. It seems like while we're picking on indie media, without saying anyone's name exclusively, it seems like there's a pipeline of CIA talking points that sort of roll downhill and filter themselves through this sort of independent media lens. And if we could dissect that for a minute and sort of talk about why that's, horrible, fucking, that might be a decent way to end it, because there's a lot of people who are watching right now. A lot of those people are going to go and then watch their pet content creators who may be a part of this whole mess.
Well, in criticizing, individuals and independent media, whether you name them or not, or organizations, I mean, this is because we should be holding independent media to a higher standard than we hold CNN, because then what's the difference between us and mainstream media, right? So that's why that's why it's important to, make these critiques and make sure, that we're not coming from the same place that mainstream media people are coming, because they're the careerists. We can't be the careerists. Right. We have to differentiate ourselves from them. They have failed us in terms of their supposed role in informing the public. It's left to people, like me. Before I wrote, I worked in food service and stuff because I couldn't find work, even though I have like 2 degrees from a university or whatever. Right. I wasn't planning on a career in this. I only really started writing because I was like, stuff is getting really insane and I feel like I should tell people, and I guess people wanted to hear or whatever, cool, right? But it's we need to make sure we're coming at this from the right place, and independent media can't fall victim and just become MSM light because we're falling victim to the same things that motivate those people.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right, and we made this point a handful of times that it seems like, because of the way that I don't know, at least in the progressive or the left sphere, the success model of wag your finger and then don't fucking do anything about it, because that's what people are used to, that they don't know how to respond when you're just coming at them with legitimate information that's well sourced. And I fucking, it drives me nuts when people will argue that like getting their fucking, getting their confirmation bias porn is more important than having a substantive conversation about something like, the Great Reset. And we've got I'm fucking rambling here, and I apologize for that. I've been up since 3:00 this morning, and I'm under caffeinated now. And my kid's yelling at me.
Calm down, little Poikinen.
I'm losing it. Real quick, it is my it's always been my hope that the audience that makes up the people who support independent media, like, have at least diversified themselves in their content enough to where now that it's critical, they can make a determination of, okay, well, the person that I go to for chuckles is no longer giving me decent information. But I don't know how to, like, make it declarative to the point to where the people who need to wake up get woken up. You know, I'm working my shit out live on camera right now, Whitney. It's basically where we're at.
This has happened more than once.
I've accidentally become independent media's therapist, so, like, I'm having my own fucking I'm not even kidding, dude. Like, people just call me just to work their shit out, you know, and so now I'm turning the tables. How do we become better communicators, Whitney, Glory, Sleepy Josh?
Better communicators. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to do everything I can, right now, but people have to keep in mind also I have a toddler and I'm burnout as fuck. But
right?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I trying to do interviews like this. I like coming on this show because it's, like, relaxed. You know, I don't have to worry about, like, sounding professional or whatever, because this is, like, I'm not, like, made for broadcast news. You know, well, to be honest, I'm pretty much just, like, you know, kind of a pothead. I don't really belong in that world, right? But I'm trying to, like, you know, do my part, and really everyone watching can do something. You know, if you're watching independent media and someone won't go somewhere and they need to go there, or they need to take a stand on something, their audience can pressure them. They're very sensitive, especially if they're coming from this careerist place. They are very sensitive to what their audience says, specifically people that support them financially, patrons or whatever. You know, you have a voice and you can push these people to cover this stuff, at least in some capacity, right? Or to at least issue a statement and acknowledge that something is going on. And we really have to start thinking, you know, I mean, you may not be a content creator, but there is stuff you can do. And again, I really want to bring people back to this local organization thing. That is something we have to do. We have to get out in the real world and start organizing with real people in organizations set up by Derek Bros and some other people, freedomcells.org. Yep. James Corbett just did an episode on his channel recently, explaining and talking about that. I mean, you can meet and team up with people that are like-minded and build community. And that's the only way we are going to beat this crap. The only answer to the extreme centralization that the Biden administration and the World Economic Forum and all of that represent is to decentralize and become autonomous and not have to depend on the systems that they're trying to entrap us in, really. And, you know, it's really incumbent on everyone that doesn't want to live in the world these people are trying to create to do something about it and to be proactive. For so long, the American public has just been so passive about everything. We are, in terms of political activism, the United States is extremely passive. Even Chile, that was brutalized by the Pinochet dictatorship, has a lot more activism politically than the U.S. does in terms of, like, direct action or actually going out and doing stuff in the real world. And it's really important that people in the States start to realize how high the stakes are. It's really, I mean, I really can't stress it enough. I mean, it's either now or never. And it's really possible that this censorship stuff is going to get really bad really soon. You know, if there's protest movements or something crazy happens on the Capitol, you can expect a lot of messaging apps. It's not just going to be just Parler. A lot of stuff could disappear soon. I mean, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. They are showing you their tactics and where they're planning to take this. And it's really important, you know, that people like you, you know, myself and you guys, you know, we're informing the public, but the public has to act. It's not just enough to be informed and know what's going on. We have to start acting, but not in ways that are going to get us roped up in this war on domestic terror thing or have us led into traps like the Stop the Steal rally was. We have to be smart, and we have to do this locally, because getting in any sort of like national organization at this point, it's going to be co-opted. It's going to be infiltrated. It's time to get local with people that you can actually get to know and trust, and start doing something collectively.
If you go back to episode 0 of this show, like the one point that I tried to make throughout is that the only way that anybody's going to survive whatever's coming towards us is by forming, making your local community as sustainable and least reliant on federal centralized structures as humanly possible. Like that's just, and I love Derek's freedom cells concept. We had Cynthia McKinney on a couple of years ago to talk about a similar thing. She was pushing freedom cells in a different organizational structure, but same overall concept. Several years ago when she spoke at Anarchapulco and stuff like that. So the concepts aren't like so radically new that they defy explanation. That like getting local and building a community and learning who your neighbors are and trying to get your neighbors to see that it doesn't have to be who gets to, who's the best snitch.
Yeah, good point. And, the U.S. is about to face an economic collapse. Do you really want the people in your neighborhood to be hating each other because of whether they have a Trump or Biden lawn sign? Or should, people in your neighborhood be working together to survive the crazy shit that's going to go down this year? You think 2020 was crazy? Just get ready for 2021, dude. A lot of stuff that was set up and that started to get bad in 2020, we haven't seen the real effects of that yet. Global food shortages, global water shortages. Istanbul and Turkey is going to run out of water in 40 days. That's a huge city. That's freaking insane. And that's just not going on in Turkey. That's going on in places around the world, right? Economic collapse. It's very possible that we see the currency reset this year where the dollar goes away. It gets replaced by this digital system that's going to be tied into this whole digital identity vaccination record push.
Social credit score.
You cannot be divided at the local level. You have to have a community. And if you don't have anyone where you live, you need to go somewhere else and find one. I mean, that's really where we're at. And that's why this divide and conquer stuff is so insidious, because not only does it have us, part of the population supporting this horrible pre-crime war on domestic terror, but it makes us unable to weather the actual storm that is coming, this economic storm and potential famines on a global level. They've been culling animals. There's this crazy stuff going on in grain markets right now with like wheat and soy. They're basically eliminating, I'm a vegetarian, so, whatever. But I mean, they are really gutting the meat industry that does feed a lot of people. And what are those people going to eat instead? Right. And the World Economic Forum has basically made it like, yeah, all the stuff is going to come during the Great Reset. And it's really going to be up to, they have a very Darwinist view of this. Only the strong will survive, and the weak will just die out during this, these resets and controlled demolitions of the systems that have maintained, society up to this point.
Yep. I mean, they say it in one of their little Great Reset trailers. You will eat less meat and you will like it. It's all so draconian, and I just want to echo like everything said, just to find your community and do what you can in your way, or in like any way that works for you, but you will have to like force yourself into some things. Like, I had to force myself into talking to people sometimes, and now it's just like second nature. But like, just find a way to do everything in your capacity to push back against this, because we don't have time to just, fuck around and just sit idly by while this huge corporate takeover happens.
Yeah,
So.
and the last point I want to make, because I'm going to have to go here really soon, is that when the World Economic Forum and these people are saying, you'll own nothing, you'll be happy, you'll do this and you'll be happy. Okay, so you, the feudal class, right, the neo-feudal class will own nothing. The billionaires are going to own it all. And they are going to lease it to you if you behave right and do what they want. And, you know, I mean, what kind of system is that, dude? And that they're framing it as more inclusive, more sustainable. And people in independent media are letting them get away with that like crazy sales pitch that makes no sense if you actually think about it. No one's going to own anything. Well, I mean, who's building it? You know, who's already creating the smart cities? It's pretty obvious what that kind of system is going to be if you actually bother to take it to its logical conclusion. It's not going to be everyone's going to own nothing. No. That's not how this works. The billionaires, the elites are going to own it all, and you will be at their complete mercy. I mean, and we have progressives cheering this shit on. I mean, what?
All right. Well, Whitney Webb, thank you so much. I need to have these conversations at least once a month. Otherwise, the entire show will just be me screaming into the microphone. I don't think anybody wants to tune in.
There may be a market for that, Steve.
Right.
Well,
the opposite of ASMR.
Well, now that all the good old punk bands have sold out and are backing Biden, like the Dead Kennedys frontman.
Oh my God! Fuck you, Jello Biafra! You're such a disappointment.
So you screaming into the microphone, we could maybe replace them with you.
I tell you, I almost drove down to fucking LA when I saw that, and I posted the picture, but it's like a What Would Jello Do episode thumbnail, and it's Jello sitting in his house by himself with a fucking mask on, and the title of the video is like, why we should vote for Biden, and it's like, you're the fucking guy who wrote Police Truck. You know, you wrote you pinned every song on Give Me Convenience or Give Me Death. You fucking wrote Shut Up, Be Happy. The last line in it is the comfort you demanded has now become mandatory, and you're fucking pushing that. You goddamn mook. I need to choke you publicly. Wow, it's so fucking frustrating, man. We need new punk rock.
I know. So a good start would be you screaming into the microphone about things. I think that's just my 2 cents.
Y'all, it's been real, Whitney. I know you got to get out of here. Please tell people where they can find your stuff.
All right, so my website is unlimitedhangout.com. It's not just my work. We feature work from a lot of people. Got some really big stuff in the works, including information that people have been looking for about very prominent people and what's going on right now that they have not been able to find, among other things. And I have an article coming up for TLAV soon about the SolarWinds hack, the whole Russian hacker narrative, and how the people most likely behind the hack are actually a Israeli company tied up with Isabel Maxwell. Surprise, surprise, who did the Promise Software scandal. So Russian hackers or Maxwell family hackers? What do you think is most likely based on historical precedent? Anyway, so that article will be out soon. For now, you can follow me on Twitter. But I'm also on Telegram. I have a channel there. I also have a chat group there. I am on a couple different platforms as well. If you go to my link tree, which should be on my Twitter timeline, you can see where you can follow me on there. You can support my work on Rockfin. My podcast is hosted on Rockfin, not under my name, but under Unlimited Hangout. We're also going to start adding video stuff to my channel, so it's not just going to be the podcast anymore. In the coming weeks, we're going to be doing a new video series taking apart crazy shit that comes out of the World Economic Forum, because it's not getting enough coverage because there's so much going on. So we're going to try and shine some light on that. And you can also support my work on Patreon as well, and also get access to my Rockfin podcast. Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. That's gonna do it for this one. We'll be back in 4.5 hours with John Fitch. And again, Whitney, just thanks so much. These really are like vital fucking I don't know, sanity checks.
Hey, we need to stay sane. You are not alone. I mean, so other people are seeing through the bullshit, and I think a lot of people too, even that we don't see maybe in social media or whatever, self-censor, are starting to realize what's going on. I mean, people are getting wise to this because it's, I mean, you know, the con, it should be more obvious than it's ever been, and I think it is for a lot of people, but a lot of people are scared to speak up. They feel like they're alone too. I mean, it's really important to start talking to people in your real life about what you think, even if you might get some pushback. We don't have time to worry about that stuff anymore. And you never know how that person's going to react, right? You may find that the person who you think is not going to be receptive actually is receptive, and are actually going to go on and start speaking truth to power because they've seen you do it. You know what I mean? So it's important we keep that stuff in mind.
Hell yeah. We will see you guys again soon. Thanks everybody who's participated in the chat. Thanks for everybody who's watching on Rockfin. Go make your free Rockfin account if you haven't done that yet. If you endorse Slow News Day for $9.99 a month, you get access to everybody else's premium content,
including mine,
including Whitney Webb's, because Unlimited Hangout is also over on the Rockfin. It is I can't get across enough how badly we need to leave YouTube in the dustbin of fucking history. So Rockfin, go do that thing. Yeah, we'll see you soon. Good luck to us all.
Bye, guys.